The silence was suffocating. Daniel's breath came out in ragged gasps as he pressed his back against the cold, cracked brick wall of an abandoned building. His heart pounded in his chest, a rapid drumbeat of fear and confusion. He had woken up alone. His group, gone. No warnings. No goodbyes. Just an empty street littered with footprints leading in different directions. His fingers tightened around the handle of his knife, the only weapon he had left. The shotgun he had carried for weeks was missing, along with his backpack. They had taken everything. At first, he had thought maybe they were attacked. Maybe they were dragged away in the night. But then, he found the note. "We had to go. You wouldn't have made it." That was it. No explanation. No directions. Just a sentence that cut deeper than any wound. A distant groan sent a shiver down his spine. He crouched lower, peering around the corner of the crumbling wall. 3 of them. Rotting, lifeless eyes. Bloodied mouths. Shambling bodies that twitched with unnatural hunger. The undead. Daniel knew better than to fight. He was weak, exhausted, and unarmed. Fighting meant death. Instead, he crept backward, his feet barely making a sound against the cracked pavement. A rusted car stood a few feet away, its windows shattered, doors open. He could hide there, just until the zombies passed. As he moved, his stomach growled painfully. He hadn't eaten in almost 2 days. If his group had left him food, he hadn't found it. Hunger gnawed at him like a slow poison, but survival came first. Just a few more steps. His foot landed on a piece of broken glass. A sharp crack echoed through the street. The zombies froze. Daniel's blood turned to ice as their heads snapped in his direction. For a moment, everything was still. Then, they charged. Daniel sprinted. His legs burned as he dodged between overturned trash bins and shattered storefronts. He could hear them behind him, moaning, snarling, chasing. His lungs screamed for air, but he couldn't stop. Not now. Not ever. He turned a corner, heart pounding, and saw his only chance, an open door. The building was dark, abandoned. But it was shelter. He didn't hesitate. He dove inside, slamming the door shut behind him. The growls grew louder. Clawed hands pounded against the door. Daniel stumbled backward, gasping. His eyes darted around the room. Shelves lined the walls, dusty and forgotten. Cans of food, bottles of water, supplies. He had found a store. Relief flooded him, but it didn't last long. A sound came from the shadows. Daniel turned, his knife raised. A figure stood in the darkness. Not a zombie. A person. A gun aimed directly at his head. "Drop the knife," the stranger growled. Daniel's grip tightened. Outside, the zombies howled. Inside, the barrel of the gun didn't waver. He was trapped, between the undead and a man who might be just as dangerous. And his nightmare had only begun. Daniel didn't lower the knife. His pulse pounded as he stared at the man in front of him. The stranger had the advantage, his gun was steady, his expression unreadable. One wrong move, and Daniel knew he wouldn't live to see the next day. The pounding at the door grew louder. The undead outside were relentless, their growls a chilling reminder of how little time he had. "Drop it," the man repeated, voice firm. Daniel's mind raced. If he let go of his knife, he'd be defenseless. If he didn't, he'd get shot. So he did the only thing he could. He raised his hands slightly, knife still in his grip. "I don't want trouble," he said. "I just needed a place to hide." The man studied him, his grip on the gun unwavering. He was older than Daniel, maybe mid-40s, with a scruffy beard and dark eyes that had seen too much. His clothes were worn, a pistol holstered at his side. "How many with you?" the man asked. Daniel hesitated. Should he tell the truth? That his group had abandoned him? That he was alone? "They left me," he admitted, voice tight. "Took my stuff. Left me with nothing." The man didn't react. For a moment, the only sound was the heavy breathing of the undead just beyond the door. Then, finally, he lowered the gun. "Bad luck," he muttered. "You're alone now." Daniel exhaled slowly, lowering his knife. "Yeah. I know." The man turned and walked toward the counter, where a small lantern flickered dimly. The store was in better shape than Daniel expected. Dusty shelves still held supplies, and an old radio sat on the counter, crackling softly with static. "You got a name?" the man asked as he dug through a bag. "Daniel." The man nodded. "Jonah." Daniel watched as Jonah tossed a can of beans onto the counter and gestured toward it. "Eat. You look like you're about to drop dead." Daniel didn't hesitate. He grabbed the can, pried it open, and scooped the cold beans into his mouth. The taste was bland, but to his starving body, it might as well have been a feast. Jonah leaned against the counter, watching him. "So what's your plan, Daniel?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Find my group." Jonah let out a short, humorless laugh. "Why?" "They ditched you." "That means they think you're a liability." Daniel clenched his jaw. He knew Jonah was right. But if there was even a chance his group was still out there, he had to find them. He had to know why they left him behind. Before he could respond, a burst of static from the radio made them both turn. Then, a voice crackled through. "Hello? Anyone, KHHH, there? If KHHH, please respond." Daniel's breath caught. A voice. A real, human voice. Jonah snatched up the radio. "Who is this?" More static. Then. "This is KHHH, survivors, trapped, KHHH, need help, taken, KHHH, base 19. Please." Then silence. Daniel and Jonah exchanged a glance. "What the hell was that?" Daniel asked. Jonah set the radio down, frowning. "Base 19. That's a military outpost. About a day's walk from here." Daniel's heart pounded. Could it be them? His group? "They said they were taken," Daniel said. "Maybe my people are there." Jonah folded his arms. "Or maybe it's a trap." Daniel shook his head. "I have to find out." Jonah studied him, then sighed. "You're an idiot," he muttered. Daniel didn't argue. Jonah rubbed a hand over his face, then grabbed his pistol. "Fine. If you're going, I'm coming with you." Daniel blinked. "Why?" Jonah shrugged. "You're gonna get yourself killed. And if you die, that's a waste of the one guy I can actually talk to in this hellhole." Daniel couldn't tell if Jonah was joking. But he didn't care. He had a lead. And tomorrow, he'd find out if his past was still waiting for him, or if he'd just walked into something worse. The morning came with an eerie silence. Daniel and Jonah stood by the shattered window of the store, scanning the ruined city before them. The streets were a graveyard of abandoned cars, decayed bodies, and roaming undead. "Base 19 is a day's walk," Jonah said, tightening the straps on his backpack. "But this city's crawling with those things. If we're not careful, we won't make it past noon." Daniel nodded, gripping his knife. He had nothing else to lose. His group might be there. He needed to know the truth. They slipped out the back door, moving swiftly through the alleys. The city had once been alive with people, traffic, and noise. Now, only the groans of the dead echoed through the empty streets. Jonah led the way, his pistol drawn. "Stay close. If they see us, we run. No heroics." Daniel followed, his heart pounding. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every movement made his muscles tense. They reached an overturned truck in the middle of the street and crouched behind it. Ahead, a dozen zombies shuffled aimlessly, blocking their path. Jonah cursed under his breath. "We can't go through them." Daniel scanned the buildings. "What about up there?" He pointed to an old fire escape leading to the roof of a nearby apartment complex. Jonah hesitated, then nodded. That could work. They moved quickly. Jonah went first, climbing the rusty ladder, testing each step carefully. Daniel followed, keeping his movements light. The metal creaked under his weight, but he didn't stop. Once on the roof, they crawled to the edge, looking down at the streets below. The undead groaned, aimlessly moving beneath them. Jonah exhaled. Good call, kid. We can rooftop hop from here. Stay quiet. They moved carefully, jumping from one building to the next. The height gave them an advantage, the undead couldn't reach them here. But then, something changed. A gunshot rang out in the distance. The undead below snapped their heads toward the sound. Then another shot. And another. Someone was fighting. Daniel and Jonah exchanged looks. Idiots, Jonah muttered. They're drawing everything to them. Daniel's gut twisted. What if it's my group? Jonah sighed. We check it out, but no unnecessary risks. They climbed down the side of a building and crept toward the gunfire. As they turned a corner, they saw the source of the chaos. A group of survivors, 3 of them, were trapped in a narrow alley. A broken-down truck blocked their escape, and zombies were swarming in from both sides. One of them, a man with a bloodied baseball bat, swung wildly. Another, a woman with a handgun, fired desperately, her bullets running low. The third, a younger guy, was already on the ground, a zombie tearing into his leg. His screams sent chills down Daniel's spine. Jonah grabbed Daniel's arm. We can't help them. We'll just get ourselves killed. Daniel clenched his fists. If that was his group, if they had left him behind, did they deserve saving? But as the woman's gun clicked empty, as the bat-wielding man was tackled to the ground, Daniel made his decision. He ran. Jonah cursed but followed. Daniel grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and swung hard, cracking a zombie's skull. Blood sprayed as he pulled the weapon free. Jonah fired 3 quick shots, taking down the ones closing in on the woman. Move! Jonah shouted. The woman didn't hesitate. She grabbed the wounded man, dragging him away. The bat-wielding man gasped for air as Daniel pulled him to his feet. Together, they sprinted down the alley, leaving the swarm behind. They didn't stop until they reached an old parking garage. Breathing hard, they collapsed behind a row of rusted cars. The woman looked at Daniel, eyes filled with shock. Daniel? His stomach dropped. He knew that voice. It was Mia, one of the people who had abandoned him. Jonah saw the look on Daniel's face. Well, shit, he muttered. Mia swallowed hard. Daniel. I thought you were dead. Daniel's grip tightened on his weapon. His pulse pounded in his ears. He had found them. But now, he needed to know why they had left him behind. Daniel's knuckles turned white around the pipe in his hands. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as he stared at Mia, one of the people who had left him behind to die. She looked just as shocked to see him, her dark hair damp with sweat, dirt smeared across her face. Daniel, she breathed. Save it, Daniel snapped. His voice was sharper than he intended, but rage and betrayal burned in his chest. You left me. You took my stuff. You thought I wouldn't make it. The man beside Mia, the one with the bloodied bat, stepped forward. We didn't have a choice. Daniel turned his glare on him. You did have a choice, Eric. And you made it. Jonah shifted beside Daniel, his pistol still in hand. So, he muttered, this is the group that screwed you over? Charming. Mia ran a shaky hand through her hair. Daniel, listen. No. Daniel took a step closer, anger boiling over. I spent days starving. Hiding. Running for my life. And now, I find you, what? Struggling to survive just like me? Maybe you should have thought of that before you threw me away. Mia's expression twisted with guilt, but Eric scowled. It was you or us, Daniel. You were slowing us down. You were injured. We didn't think you'd. Daniel slammed the pipe against a nearby car, the loud clang cutting Eric off. I survived. Without you. Silence fell over the group. The only sounds were their ragged breaths and the distant groans of the undead still lurking in the streets. The third survivor, a younger man lying against a rusted truck, groaned in pain. His leg was a mess of torn flesh and blood, a zombie bite. Jonah sighed, looking at the kid. He's not gonna make it. Mia flinched. He's just a kid. Doesn't matter, Jonah said coldly. A bite's a death sentence. You know that. Daniel forced himself to stay focused. As much as he hated seeing the kid suffer, there was only one question on his mind. How did you end up here? He demanded. Why did you leave me and run? Mia hesitated, then spoke. After we left you, we headed toward Base 19. We heard rumors about survivors there. But when we got close, we were ambushed. Daniel's breath caught. By zombies? Mia shook her head. No. People. Eric spat on the ground. They weren't just people. They were worse than the undead. Bandits. They killed half our group, took the rest. We barely escaped. But they're still out there. Daniel's mind raced. The radio signal. The voice pleading for help. Survivors taken. Are you saying these bandits took the rest of our group? Daniel asked. Mia nodded. Yeah. And if that radio signal we heard came from Base 19, they might still be alive. Jonah let out a bitter laugh. Great. So we're walking straight into a human death trap instead of a zombie-infested one. Love that for us. Eric turned to Daniel. We need help getting to the base. We need to save them. Daniel narrowed his eyes. You want my help? After what you did? Mia stepped closer. I know we don't deserve it. But Daniel, we can't do this alone. And I don't want to leave anyone else behind. Daniel searched her face, looking for lies. He found none. Jonah sighed. We should leave them. Daniel considered it. He wanted to. But then he thought about the others. The ones still trapped. The ones who hadn't made the choice to betray him. He took a deep breath. I'm not doing this for you, Daniel said. I'm doing this for the people still alive at Base 19. Mia nodded, relief washing over her face. Eric hesitated, then muttered, fair enough. Jonah grumbled. We're gonna regret this. Daniel ignored him. One way or another, this would end at Base 19. And he'd finally get the answers he needed. The streets felt even more dangerous now. Every dark alley, every overturned car, every shadow could be hiding something waiting to kill them. Daniel moved swiftly, gripping his metal pipe as if his life depended on it, because it did. Jonah walked beside him, pistol ready. Behind them, Mia and Eric helped the wounded kid, whose breathing had grown shallow. How much longer before he turns? Jonah muttered under his breath. Daniel didn't answer. He knew the truth. The kid, Lucas, Mia had called him, was already dead. The fever had set in, his skin pale and clammy. His leg was a mess of rotting flesh. Soon, he wouldn't be Lucas anymore. They moved through the ruins of an old shopping district, careful to avoid making noise. The radio signal from Base 19 had been their only clue, but it also meant someone else had sent it. Someone trapped. Someone waiting. Or worse, someone setting a trap. We're getting close, Mia whispered, glancing at the map she'd scrawled on a crumpled piece of paper. Base 19 is about 3 miles west. Jonah frowned. Then we should be seeing more signs of life, or death. Daniel glanced around. He was right. The streets were too quiet. Too empty. That's when Lucas groaned. Mia dropped to her knees beside him, touching his forehead. He's burning up. Eric's face was grim. We have to keep moving. No, Jonah said flatly. We have to put him down. Mia's head snapped up. No. We can still. Jonah leveled his gun. He's as good as dead, and you know it. It's not about if he turns. It's when. Daniel swallowed hard. Jonah was right. But looking at Mia, he saw fear, not just for Lucas, but for herself. She had abandoned Daniel once. Would she do the same when Lucas turned? A distant gunshot shattered the silence. Everyone froze. More shots followed, 2, 3, then a burst of automatic fire. Base 19, Daniel whispered. Then, another sound, the roar of engines. Jonah cursed. We need to move. Now. Mia hesitated. She looked at Lucas, then back at Daniel. Daniel met her eyes. He's already gone. Her face crumpled. She knew it, too. Eric gritted his teeth, stepping forward. I'll do it. Mia flinched but didn't stop him. A single gunshot echoed. Lucas was gone. There was no time to grieve. They ran. The highway of the dead. The gunfire grew louder as they neared Base 19. Smoke rose in thick plumes from beyond the broken city skyline. When they reached a ruined highway overpass, Jonah held up a hand. Get down. They crouched behind an abandoned truck, peering through a gap in the wreckage. The road ahead was chaos. A group of survivors, no more than 6, were pinned down behind sandbag barriers, exchanging fire with a heavily armed gang. The bandits. Daniel's stomach twisted. These had to be the ones Mia had warned about. The ones who had taken their group. The base itself, a fortified military outpost, loomed behind the battle. The gates were open, smoke pouring from inside. Shit, Jonah muttered. That place is already falling. Eric gripped his bat. We have to help them. Jonah shot him a look. And die in the process? No thanks. Mia's hands shook. What if the others are still in there? Daniel clenched his jaw. This was it. The moment they had fought to reach. And there was no turning back. He took a deep breath. We make a move. Jonah sighed. This is suicide. Daniel tightened his grip on his pipe. Then we better make it count. The gunfire ahead didn't stop. It echoed through the ruins, a deadly rhythm of chaos. Daniel crouched behind the abandoned truck, gripping his metal pipe so tightly his knuckles ached. Mia's breathing was shaky beside him. Eric's grip on his bloodied bat was firm, his eyes locked on the battle. Jonah, always the cynic, gave Daniel a dry look. Tell me you have a plan. Daniel exhaled. We flank them. Cause a distraction. If our people are still alive inside Base 19, we give them a fighting chance. Jonah scoffed. A distraction? With what? Daniel gestured to the overturned fuel truck nearby. The side of it was riddled with bullet holes, and a dark puddle of gasoline had seeped onto the cracked pavement. Jonah's eyes flickered with understanding. That'll do. Eric shifted nervously. You're talking about blowing it up? Daniel nodded. It'll draw the undead. If we time it right, the horde will crash into the bandits before they even realize what's happening. Mia swallowed. And if we screw up? Jonah smirked. Then we die horribly. But hey, at least it'll be interesting. Daniel ignored him. We move fast. Jonah and I will sneak over, set up the explosion. Mia, Eric, you cover us. The second that truck blows, we run for the base. Mia hesitated, then nodded. No time for fear. No room for doubt. Lighting the match. Daniel and Jonah moved quickly, staying low as they crept toward the fuel truck. The bandits were too focused on their firefight to notice. Jonah crouched near a broken-down car, pulling a lighter from his pocket. You better be right about this, kid. Daniel grabbed an old rag from the ground, dipping it in the spilled gasoline. Trust me. Jonah snorted. I don't trust anyone. Daniel didn't argue. He twisted the rag, stuffing it into the fuel tank's opening. Jonah flicked the lighter, the flame flickering in his hand. Once this goes up, Jonah muttered, we'll have seconds before the fireworks start. Daniel exhaled. Do it. Jonah lit the rag. Flames raced toward the fuel. Run. They sprinted back toward Mia and Eric. Behind them, the explosion ripped through the highway. The force knocked Daniel forward, his ears ringing as fire engulfed the fuel truck. The shockwave rattled the air, sending debris flying. Then came the second explosion. The fire had ignited a row of abandoned cars, creating a chain reaction of deadly blasts. Screams filled the air, not from the survivors, not from the bandits, but from the undead. The city had heard the explosion. And it was answering. The horde arrives. From the ruins, they came. Dozens. Hundreds. The undead poured from the alleyways, crawling over wrecked cars, eyes burning with hunger. The explosion had summoned them. The bandits panicked. Their gunfire turned from the survivors to the horde, but it was too late. The first zombies reached them. Chaos erupted. Daniel didn't wait. Go! Mia and Eric sprinted ahead, Jonah right behind them. Daniel pushed his legs harder, his lungs burning as they rushed toward Base 19. Bodies littered the entrance. The gates had been forced open, smoke pouring from inside. Eric grabbed a fallen rifle. This way. They slipped inside the outpost, past sandbag barricades and the bodies of fallen soldiers. The air stank of blood and smoke. Mia's voice trembled. Where are they? Gunfire still echoed deeper inside. Survivors were fighting. Daniel gritted his teeth. We find them. Jonah reloaded his pistol. And if we don't? Daniel didn't look back. Then we finish this ourselves. The air inside Base 19 was thick with smoke and death. The once fortified military outpost was now a war zone, abandoned barricades, blood-streaked walls, and bodies littered the ground. Gunfire echoed from deeper within, mixed with the guttural moans of the undead. Someone was still alive. Daniel gripped his pipe, his pulse pounding. This was it. Jonah crouched behind a sandbag barrier, scanning the area. If your people are still here, they won't last long. Mia's hands shook as she clutched her pistol. Then we move. Now. Eric checked the rifle he had taken. We stick together. Daniel nodded, then led them forward. Trapped in the war zone. They moved through the ruined outpost, keeping close to the walls. The base was a maze of wrecked military vehicles, broken fences, and bodies, both human and undead. Then, voices. A scream. A gunshot. Daniel's gut twisted. They were close. They turned a corner and found themselves in the base's central courtyard, a wide-open space filled with the wreckage of a recent battle. At the far end, 3 survivors were pinned down behind an overturned Humvee. Daniel's breath caught. One of them was Ethan. His best friend. Daniel's chest tightened. Ethan was alive, barely. His arm was bandaged, his face smeared with dirt and blood. Beside him, a woman reloaded a shotgun, while a third man, wounded, struggled to stay upright. Surrounding them? Bandits. At least 8 of them, heavily armed and advancing fast. Mia sucked in a breath. It's them. Eric gritted his teeth. We have to move. Daniel didn't hesitate. We hit them from behind. Jonah gave a dry chuckle. Hell of a way to die, kid. Daniel ignored him. They had one chance. If they didn't take it now, Ethan and the others were dead. The ambush. Daniel signaled 3, 2, 1. Then, they attacked. Eric fired first. His stolen rifle barked, dropping one bandit instantly. Jonah followed, his pistol flashing as he took out another. Mia's bullets tore through the chaos, forcing the bandits to turn, too late. Daniel charged, swinging his pipe with everything he had. He caught one of them in the jaw, crack, sending him sprawling. Another turned, raising a shotgun. Jonah shot him before he could fire. Panic spread among the bandits. They hadn't expected this. Ethan saw his chance. He grabbed his own gun and fired, taking down a man just feet away. Within seconds, the battle had shifted. The bandits, caught between two fronts, fell into chaos. Some ran. Others fought harder. But the undead, drawn by the explosion outside, had already begun pouring in through the open gates. A bandit screamed as a zombie tackled him. Another was dragged down, his gun clattering to the ground. Daniel didn't stop to watch. He ran toward Ethan, his heart pounding. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. "Daniel?" Daniel skidded to a stop beside him, panting. "We're getting you out of here." Ethan's face was pale, his wound bleeding. "You're alive." "I thought." "No time," Daniel said, pulling him to his feet. "We have to go." The woman beside Ethan, short, fierce, her shotgun still smoking, glanced at Daniel. "You better have a plan." Jonah's voice rang out from behind. "We run. Now." But before they could move, a familiar voice stopped them cold. "Not so fast." Daniel froze. A figure stepped forward from the smoke. A man in a long coat, a rifle slung over his shoulder. His face was sharp, his expression cruel. The leader of the bandits. And Daniel recognized him. His breath caught in his throat. "No way." Mia's face paled. The bandit leader smirked. "Miss me, kid?" Daniel's stomach twisted. The man standing before them was his older brother. For a moment, everything froze. The gunfire, the screams, the moans of the undead, all of it faded into the background as Daniel locked eyes with the man standing before him. His older brother. Nathan. Daniel's grip on his pipe tightened. His chest ached with emotions he didn't have time to process. Nathan looked different. Hardened. Scarred. Dangerous. A cruel smirk tugged at Nathan's lips. "Didn't think I'd see you again, little brother." Jonah tensed beside Daniel. "Someone you know?" Daniel's throat was dry. "He's my brother." Nathan chuckled. "More like the smarter brother." He gestured to the chaos around them. "You always were too soft, Daniel. You think you can save everyone. That's why you got left behind, isn't it?" Mia flinched. Daniel clenched his jaw. "And you think this is better?" He gestured to the bandits, to the death Nathan had surrounded himself with. "You're murdering survivors now?" Nathan shrugged. "The world's changed. We don't survive by being good, Danny." His eyes flickered to the others, Ethan, Mia, Jonah, Eric. "I should have known you'd get yourself tangled up with the weak." Jonah scoffed. "Weak? We just took down half your men." Nathan barely reacted. "And yet, you're still outnumbered." Daniel's stomach twisted. Nathan was right. Even with the undead pouring in, they weren't safe. Nathan exhaled, shaking his head. "I don't have time for this. You and your little group are going to walk away. Now." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "And if we don't?" Nathan's smirk widened. "Then you die." Behind them, the horde was closing in. The undead flooded into Base 19, drawn by the battle. Daniel's mind raced. They couldn't fight both the bandits and the horde. They needed a way out. Fast. The last gamble. Jonah leaned toward Daniel, his voice low. "I got one last trick up my sleeve." Daniel glanced at him. "What?" Jonah tapped his belt. Daniel's eyes widened. "A grenade." Daniel hesitated. If they used it, they'd only have seconds to escape. But it was their only chance. He met Jonah's gaze and gave a small nod. Jonah grinned. "Cover your ears." Then, he pulled the pin and threw it. Straight at Nathan. Nathan's eyes widened. "Move!" The grenade hit the ground near his feet. Boom! The explosion ripped through the courtyard, sending bodies flying. Smoke and dust filled the air. Daniel didn't wait. Go! They ran. Escape or die. The explosion had thrown the remaining bandits into chaos. The horde, now completely inside Base 19, tore into anything that moved. Daniel grabbed Ethan, helping him limp toward the exit. Eric fired wildly at the zombies, clearing a path. Mia covered their backs. Jonah laughed as he shoved a zombie aside. Best plan I've ever had. Nathan was still alive. He coughed, pushing himself up from the rubble. His face was burned, furious. Daniel, he roared. But the undead were on him. Daniel hesitated for a split second, watching as the creatures swarmed his brother. Nathan fought. He shot. He killed. But there were too many. Their eyes met, one final time. And then, the horde dragged Nathan down. Daniel turned away. There was no saving him. The final run. The group burst through the gates of Base 19, sprinting down the ruined streets. Behind them, the outpost burned. They didn't stop running until they reached an abandoned tunnel outside the city. Panting. Bleeding. Alive. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, Ethan looked at Daniel. That was your brother? Daniel exhaled. Yeah. Mia's voice was soft. I'm sorry. Daniel shook his head. He wasn't sure what he felt. Jonah flopped onto the ground, laughing. Hell of a day, huh? Eric sighed. We lost a lot. Daniel stared at the distant glow of the burning city. They had survived. But the world was still broken. And it wasn't over yet. He gripped his pipe and took a deep breath. Tomorrow, they'd keep moving. Because in a world that no longer felt human, survival was all that mattered.